folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey. Now this one's going to be a little bit different than ones in the past because this is going to be a revisited review. I have done a review for Memoir 44 in the past, and that's what we're going to be taking a look at today. But this is a revisited review because I do believe that you got to reconnect sometimes. You got to rethink how you thought in the past and see if it still stands up to the test of time. And so that's what we're going to be doing today with Memoir 44. This is a 20-year-old game. This was first published in 2004 by Richard Borg and Days of Wonder. So let's get down to the table and take a look. So here I have a game of Memoir 44 set up for you, and basically I used just one of the scenarios that comes in the rule book, the Operation Cobra, and this happened from July 25th to July 22nd in 1944. So that's one of the first things that I want to make sure you're clear about. This is a historically based game. It is themed around actual battles that happened during World War II. And each scenario has a historical background for it. It also gives you different rules for each of the players, the victory conditions, and any additional special rules that are present with units that are on the board. It also gives a pictorial setup of how the game needs to be set up and ready to go. So that's what each scenario does. Now, with that in mind, Memoir 44 is a card-based strategy game where you're going to have a hand of cards. Each person has their own set of cards, and you'll be able to use cards out of your hand in order to carry out different orders on the board. And each of the cards have a little bit of a different thing. So, for example, if I take a look at this card here, it gives you the name of the card, what kind of card it actually is, a little bit of a picture. All of the cards have the same picture except for special cards. They have different artwork on them like this. But then it has how many units are going to be in the little orange bubble. This particular card says all of your units in the center area of the field, and then it highlights one of the areas of the field that you actually can use this card in. So, for example, this one is all units in the center section of the field. This one is going to be all units in the left flank area of the board. And so this tells you how many units and in what area of the field you can give an order on your turn. A turn basically consists of playing a card from your hand, giving the orders to the units that you wish to give orders to, moving and then attacking with those units, then drawing a card from the pile to replace the one that you played, and then it becomes your opponent's turn. So, for example, on my turn, I could use this assault card that I showed you earlier. This allows me to use all of the units in my center flank. So, if you look at these red lines that are here on the board, this denotes from right flank, for me, center flank, and left flank. So, any unit that is on the line can be given an order from a card that activates this or this area of the battlefield. Same with this one over here. You can activate this unit using a card for this area or the middle area. So all units in my center area means I can activate this unit, this unit, this unit, this one, and this one because they are all in that center section. Now, when I give an order to a unit, I basically give them the ability to move and shoot on their turn. But here's the thing, and so that you don't have to remember it, they have all of these little cards that give you a rundown for each of the standard units. So a standard infantry unit can move one and battle, or move two and not battle. So for example, if I wanted to, I could take these guys right here and move them out of these hedgerows and go 1, 2, just like this. And then they wouldn't be able to battle, which is fine because they don't have any lines of sight on anything anyway. These guys, however, I may not want to have them move. I may just want to have them shoot. These guys also, they're not close enough to make it to any other cover, so I may just want to leave them there and possibly have them shoot. But the problem is Infantry units, regular infantry units, can shoot 1, 2, 3 spaces away. They don't have anything to shoot at that way, so maybe I just want to move these guys forward here so they can take a pot shot at somebody and see how that works out. Back here, maybe I want to have these guys over here move 1, 2, and protect this city right here, which is actually a victory point condition for the Allies. So maybe I want to move those guys over here. And now that I've moved these guys out of the way, I could, if I wanted to, move my tanks. Tanks are able to move up to 3 spaces, which is denoted right here on this card for me. And then they can battle for 3 spaces away as well. We do want to get them out into the open, so we go 1, 2, 3, just like that. Now, I could move them through the forest here, but one of the things for a forest is that a unit moving into a forest has to end their movement, and they also don't get to shoot that turn either. So I went around to get 1 space further than I would be if I had to go through that. Now that I've moved all of my units, I now have the opportunity to open fire with them if they haven't moved their full allotment. So these guys move 2, they can't shoot, they don't have anything in line of sight anyway. These guys moved 2 as well, but they don't have any line of sight on anybody, so that's okay. These guys didn't move at all, so they're going to be able to shoot, and these guys only moved 1, so they can shoot as well. My tanks can move 3 and shoot 3, but they don't have anybody in line of sight, so they're done for the turn. So these 2 units right here are the only ones that can actually open fire. When you open fire, you're going to be rolling these dice, a number of dice dependent by how far away they are from the unit they're attacking. Regular infantry units will roll 3 dice if they are right next to it, and that's considered close combat. Or you can roll 2 dice or 1 die. So with them being 3 spaces away from any of these 3 frontliners here, I can only roll 1 die, but I have to pick which unit I'm going to roll at. So I'm going to roll 1 die at this unit right here, and so we do that. And if I roll an infantry, that scores a hit because I'm rolling against infantry. If I was shooting against a tank unit with this roll, it would be a miss. I would want to roll a tank face. Grenades are hits on every unit that you're rolling against. It doesn't matter. They're basically a wild hit. And stars, like this right here, are always a miss. Some cards that you play will say that stars count, but generally speaking, they're a miss. And then finally, a retreat flag means that you're going to cause the unit you're shooting at to have to retreat 1 space toward their edge of the board. So in this particular case, because we're here, if I rolled just a retreat flag on these guys, they would have to retreat 1 space toward their board edge, but because both of those spaces are taken, it would actually translate to another hit. So in this kind of situation, flags rolled will add to your advantage. But in this case, I just rolled a hit, so 1 unit comes off and gets put back into the box. Once all the models in a specific unit have been taken away by attacks, then for example, let's say that I rolled it where it looked like this. I got 1 hit, there's only 1 model left. He would be removed from the board, but that becomes a victory point for the side that took him out. You'll see that conditions of victory are mentioned right here, and in this specific scenario, one of the sides needs to get 5 medals, which means that they need to knock out 5 different units in order to be considered the winner of this scenario. Now, these guys would be able to take a shot as well. We'll go ahead and put these back here as it were. And now, since these guys are done, these guys would be able to shoot as well. Now, they don't have necessarily line of sight here because of the hedgerows, but they do definitely have line of sight and range, 1, 2, 3, to these guys over here. So they can roll 3, 2, 1 die, and we roll the die, and I roll the tank, so that is a miss. Nothing happens on that roll. Now it's the end of my turn. This card that I played would go into the discard pile, and I draw a new card to replace the one that I played, and now it's my opponent's turn. And this is how the game will play, with one side taking turns, the other side taking a turn, and back and forth until the victory conditions are met by one side or the other. At that point, you'll take a note as to how many medals the winner got, how many medals the loser got. You'll switch sides, actually, and play another round, and whoever wins by the greatest medal differential is the actual winner of the game. But you can just play one side against the other one time, and whoever gets the victory conditions first is the winner, and have that be the end of the game. It's whatever you'd like to do. And so that's about that for Memoir 44. Now, it's a very simple game and it's not difficult at all. For my final thoughts, I just want to say that if you have paid attention to any of my top 100s, any of my top 10s, or anything like that over the years, you'll probably know that the ranking that I'm about to give this game here in just a few minutes is not going to have changed that much. This is, in my opinion, an evergreen game. And that simply means, quite frankly, that I don't think it will ever diminish in its quality, and I don't think it'll ever leave my collection, because I enjoy the game that much. Now, you may be asking, why then do a revisited video? Because I do think it's important to take a look back at some games on a fairly consistent basis, to reevaluate how you feel about them, to reevaluate how they played, to reevaluate the mechanisms that they employed, how they employed them, all of those kinds of things. I think it's interesting, and it's also valuable for people who might not know that this game exists. Let's take a very frank look at that. This is a 20-year-old game. This game has been around for 2 decades now. Makes me feel old. If only 2,000 games came out every year, and that's a very low ball. That means 40,000 games have come out since this game was released. Just let that sink in for a little bit. So that's why I'm doing a revisited video, because I think that sometimes we forget, or we don't even know, that games like this exist. And this one is particularly good. So as we begin talking about pros and cons for Memoir 44, my first pro is, in my opinion, the most important pro of the game, and that is the historical context that the game resides within. This is one of those games, for me, that teaches you something about history without you really feeling like you're learning anything about history. And that's a really important pro, in my opinion. I think that history is an important thing to remember, and those who forget history, the phrase has been coined, are doomed to repeat it. So I think the more we remember about things like war, what these people went through, yes, they're just little miniatures on the board. They're just pieces that you're going to be moving around. But if we forget that these were actual people, if we forget that these were actually sons and fathers that were going through all of these horrific situations, if we forget that, we're going to be a little bit more easy to send our future sons and our future daughters and our future moms and our future dads into those same kinds of horrific situations without trying to figure out another way to balance all of that. The historical connection that this game made the choice to have at each of these different scenarios. Historical background on every single one. This one comes with, I think it's 12 or 14 different scenarios. 13, 14, 15, 16. Yeah, 16 different scenarios. Each of the 16 different scenarios has a historical section part to it, and it actually gives you that context within which these different scenarios take place. I read them every single time that I play them, because maybe I've never played the scenario. I want to know what's going on. Maybe I've played the scenario 100 times. I still want to be reminded that these are real people making real decisions and going through these real horrific things. Second pro, the mechanisms are super simple. This game employs the commands and colors system of gaming, which is very, very simple. And they make it even more simple by providing a lot of player aids that will keep all of the information that you need out here on the board so that you don't have to spend a lot of time going through the rule book. Yes, you have to read the rule book. Yes, you're going to have to do your due diligence and learn how to play the game. But there, with this being 20 years old, there is a plethora of videos that are out there and readily available for you to use. I've done many playthroughs that if you just watch those, it can give you a very good idea of how to play the game. Maybe we made some mistakes. Just me knowing who I am, that's probably happened. However, it'll give you a great jump start to learning how to play Memoir 44 if you just watch a couple of those playthroughs. So you could do that. I've done a lot of playthroughs on the Dice Tower as well. You could go watch those. Go watch your favorite person, whomever they are. If they played Memoir 44, they probably made a video of it. There's so many different ways to learn how to play the game, but the mechanisms are super simple. And it's kind of like riding a bike. Once you learn how to do it, you're not going to forget. You might get a little fuzzy on some of the nuances, like what does this terrain do, or what was the exact restriction that it has over here in this situation? What does that token do? All of those things are things you'll have to be reminded about. But generally speaking, the mechanisms are super simple. You play a card out of your hand, order your units, move them, battle with them. Now it's your opponent's turn, and you continue doing that. It's super, super simple, and I don't mean to overstate that because I understand that it could be very difficult for some. But I think generally speaking, it won't be. And that's why it's a pro. My third pro for the game is quite simply the component quality. Even for a 20-year-old game, this has got some of the best components in the business. Now, do they use plastic that might be a little bit more bendy than I want it to be? Yes. Are the cards an actual, a luxurious stock with linen finish? No, they're not. But they're very functional and they're very nice. This is one of the coolest things about the game, and I'm kind of a nerd for mentioning this, but I love the fact that the game comes with card holders. Love that. I think that's a great little component addition because I don't have to hold these cards in my hand. I can just set them right here into this little handy-dandy card holder. And what's the cool thing about card holders? It keeps all of my oil off of those cards. So now the cards are going to last longer than they normally would. The dice that come in the game are super well done. And I love rounded corners on these six-sided dice, and I just really enjoy them. The copy that I have are wooden. I think that might have changed in some second printings, but I don't know for sure. But the bottom line is all of the tiles are very sturdy cardboard stock, and they hold together very well. I really enjoy it. On top of all of that, it has a really good box insert here. I'm not going to open this box up because all of the stuff that I'm not using has had time to kind of flop around in there and it'll be messy. But the insert for storing the game, once you get everything back into the game, is very good and it holds everything in the thing, so in the box well. So the component quality is a definite pro for me. My fourth pro at this point, this is a revisited review, so my fourth pro at this point is that there is a wealth of expansion material that is still available for this game, even 20 years later. Now, it's not at its its heyday where there's everything's going to be available. But I think that if you do your research and you do your digging, you'll be able to find more than you'll probably want to or be able to buy, at least at one go. You'll have to do your own research on the sites that you choose to frequent and all that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, even though it's 20 years old, you'll still be able to find the base game and expansions for this readily available in a lot of different places. It is still available for you to go out and purchase right now, 20 years later after it's being released. That should tell you something about it. and it's really great. As far as cons are concerned, the only con that I really have, and for me, I'm mentioning this because I've had so many people tell me about it. It's not a con for me, and I'll talk about why. But the one con that I've heard a lot of people talk about is that they feel so restricted by their cards. And unfortunately, there isn't a mechanism built into the game where you can just get rid of your cards and draw a new hand. And so that rubs people the wrong way because they feel like I was too hampered at certain points with what I could do with my hand, and there wasn't a mechanism built into it where I could dump my hand and get a new hand and possibly have a better chance of doing better. And you're right. That is absolutely correct. There are going to be times, many times in my playing of the game, where I have felt hampered by the cards that I had in my hand. And I felt like if I would have just had better cards, I would have been able to do better. And there's nothing I can say about that. So if that's going to be a problem for you, then that's a con. Now, why do I think that it's not that big of a con? Well, I think that's one of the genius parts of the design, actually. I think one of the best things about the game is that you can't dump your hand and just get a new one, because that represents fog of war. That represents something getting messed up down the chain of command. You didn't get the orders that you were supposed to get because of this, and this happening. Whatever it might be the case, fog of war happens, and that's one of the brilliant decisions that I think Borg and the developers made, was to not have a mechanism where you can dump your hand and get a new one. I think fog of war needs to be represented in games like this, and this is one of the games that does that, and I think it uses that mechanism to represent that fog of war, that you're not always going to have all of the best laid out plans. You know, this God mode that most people can have, I'm looking out on the battlefield. I know he has units over here. I know there are units over here, and I can do this, and I can do this, and oh, I'm going to go over here and because he's weak over there. In real life, you didn't have that kind of information all of the time. You didn't know that behind those trees over there, there's a full, battalion of tanks waiting to crush you. You didn't know that, that town's empty. There's no units in there. I can just walk right in. You didn't know that kind of stuff. And not being able to refill your hand of command cards when you are down to basic bare minimums, not being able to really utilize everything well, yeah, that kind of stinks from a game perspective. But let's keep an open mind here. It also produces a very formidable fog of war that was part of this existence, part of this experience. So it's a con, I get it, for many people. I don't think it's that big of a con for me. Now, as far as my rating is concerned, this is quite simple. Not only has Memoir 44 held the line, it has grown in enjoyment for me. So I believe I had this ranked as an 8 out of 10 on the Board Game Geek. I'm going to go back and give it a 9 out of 10. I'm very, 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 very stingy with 10s. I rarely don't give them out at all. But this is a 9 out of 10 for me now. It used to be an 8, now it's a 9. I don't think that, as I said before earlier, I don't think that I'll ever get rid of it. I don't think it'll ever lose my collection. I do need to organize my collection a little bit better of Memoir 44 stuff, but it's never going to leave. I enjoy that game that much. It has only grown in respect, in enjoyment, since I was originally introduced to it. So 9 out of 10 from me for the revisited review. That's an upgrade of a full point, and I think it's very deserving of it as well. Now, with that being said, another reason why I wanted to go ahead and revisit this right now is because next Monday, May 27th, 2024, that is Memorial Day. So it's a great time to sit, reflect, and have a bit of quiet time on giving some thought to those people who pay the ultimate price in service of our country. I know it's easy to get into the hustle and bustle of barbecue parties and going pool parties and having people over and no school and possibly no work and all of that other kind of stuff. But let's try to remember why the day is a holiday, shall we? Without any further ado, I'm going to let you get to the rest of your day. Thank you for joining me right here on the Dice Tower. We certainly appreciate your time. We'll see you guys and gals on the flip side. Take care.